Aziz, a 34-year-old Indonesian, has been living in Dubai with his wife and two children for the past 5 years. Now, the family's been saving for a grand trip to the US. They've all been wanting to go, they've been talking about it for years. They're planning to visit plenty of cities, tourist attractions, all of that. They've got a whole list ready, they've made the bookings. Now, after months of planning and figuring out all the bookings, they could finally afford to make the trip. So excitedly, they booked the tickets, hotels, multiple destinations, attractions in the US. So obviously, the whole trip was expensive. But they were excited for that one big getaway that they were doing as a family. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse. Just a couple of days before the trip, Aziz fell seriously ill to the point where he had to be admitted to the hospital. So look, he recovered after about a week, but by then it was too late to get onto those flights, right? So all their trip plans were delayed. The flights and hotels could not be cancelled. The family was completely disheartened to miss out on their one big vacation. It'll now take them years to plan a similar one again. Now you can imagine how this must have affected the family's morale, besides the hole that it created in their finances. Welcome to the Policy Project podcast by Policybazaar.ae, where we discuss important topics related to the world of finance and insurance. On today's show, as we have had before, is Neeraj Gupta, the CEO of Policybazaar.uae, to throw some light on the importance of travel insurance and why you should have it and why you should care to begin with. Hi Neeraj, thank you for coming back on the show with us. Always a pleasure.
Hi Jaggu, pleasure to be here on the Policy Project. Thanks for having me.
So Neeraj, we're going to be discussing Aziz's story, as you've just heard. Now, given that Policybazaar.ae also does travel insurance, invariably, I'm sure you've come across many other stories like that.
Yes.
So my thing is, you plan vacations, you can plan vacations months in advance, but then people don't end up taking travel insurance, very much like what Aziz has done. What could his family have done to avoid this situation?
So Jaggu, this is a very pertinent question when it comes to travel insurance, right? We get a lot of inquiries, and especially being in UAE, majority of the people would travel on long extended weekends or summer vacations, and people take flights and go to far off places. And typically when they're planning, they're in a happy mood and everything. And I believe that is where they don't want to think about travel insurance. They believe nothing is going to go wrong. But having said that, things go wrong. And especially post the COVID era, that's become a lot more reality, right? Where things just got cancelled at the last minute. And having a travel insurance helps you with that. So for example, in the Aziz's case, if they had a travel insurance, it could cover all the cancellation costs. Because he was sick, he was hospitalized, so he had enough medical grounds on which the travel insurance would have kicked in.
So that's the thing. What do you look for when you're buying travel insurance?
So pretty much, see, there are two aspects to it, right? One, you are buying a travel insurance to do two things for yourself. One, to probably insure the cost you've spent on the trip, so that if you have to cancel or get sick, it takes care of all the changes in it, right? Or if your flight get delayed and you have connecting flights, how does that work, right? So one piece is to that. Second is, if you're traveling there and something happens to you, you have COVID or you have an injury and where you have to get hospitalized, right? So travel insurance takes care of that aspect also, which is under the medical part of it. So the first is related to your travel expenses and the second is related to your medical expenses. Those are the typical two aspects.
Okay, so there's travel, there's medical expenses, but aren't there also levels in travel insurance? I mean, different types of...
So travel insurance has multiple types. So it would be, one would be a sum insured base. So you want a coverage for a $50,000, $30,000, $100,000, that will be one. And then what type of coverages you want? For example, you would have a trip cancellation. Do you also want to cover trip delay? Do you want to cover baggage loss? Do you want to cover baggage delays? Do you want to cover your medical expenses from a personal accident perspective? What type of coverage you want? You want $50,000, $100,000. Do you want your belongings to be covered? For example, passport loss, cash loss, wallet loss. So depending on the cover you want, the plans are there. On a basic level, we always suggest for people to cover their travel costs and medical expenses. Those should be taken care of.
Okay. Now, but if we're allowed these different levels, do we have choices, or can we mix and match? For example, I want this, I don't want this, I want this, I don't want this. Is that possible on a policy? Like, say I'm on the Policybazaar website. Am I allowed to do that mix and match?
Yes, you have different plans. So you'll have a basic level of a plan, and then you will have plan which will depict what all features are included or not included. So you
Okay.
can choose the features that you want.
Okay. Okay. Now, I must ask you this because I'm booking a ticket, I'm booking hotels, I'm booking other travel arrangements. Now you're asking me to take on one more cost. I realize only in hindsight what taking on that cost means in terms of advantages. That I know only later. But right now, while I'm traveling and making all my happy plans, you're saying, oh, but you need to protect yourself. Now, what kind of costing should I be factoring in for this?
So, for example, let's take the example of Aziz's family, right?
Okay.
2 adults, 2 children, traveling to US. I'm expecting they were traveling for at least 10 days, if not more or less.
I'm going to say more.
Right, because you're traveling 16 hours, 18 hours flight, so you obviously
Exactly.
travel. Now, I am talking about a bare minimum expense they would have incurred on the trip is about 20,000 dirhams. Bare minimum expense.
Fair
Fair
enough.
enough.
Okay.
Now, the travel cost of 20,000 dirhams, roughly the travel insurance for these 4 people would cost you less than about 300 dirhams for 10 days.
Oh, so like 1.5% of the cost of my entire trip is travel insurance.
So now at that cost, it just starts to become insignificant, right?
Pretty much.
At about roughly about 100 dirham per person, you're almost talking about 1-2 meals or probably one amusement park ticket, but it takes care of the headache that what happens.
Yes.
Even if you had to cancel hotel for 1 day, you will recover your cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, even change of plans will cost me that much.
See, what you have to take into account for travel insurances, it is for unknown. Now, tomorrow my plans change and I don't want to travel. That is not covered through travel insurance. So I wanted to tell our listeners specifically, travel insurance is for an eventuality that you couldn't plan for. So you fell sick, you had to get hospitalized. That is a good enough reason to be covered under travel insurance. But tomorrow my plan changes because of, okay, I have an important meeting I need to cancel, or suddenly we decided to go somewhere else, then it is not part of travel insurance.
Okay. Now, when you say 300 dirhams, I'm like, okay, that's a cost I'm happy to take. But I have kids with me or I have elder parents with me. I want a higher coverage. Nothing stops me from doing that.
Yes, definitely not. So you can go up to $1 million coverage or probably more also per person.
Okay.
Typically, what we suggest is if you're traveling to the US, at least you should have about a $150,000 to $200,000 cover. If you're traveling to the Europe side, about 150, and Asia side, $50,000 to $100,000.
Okay. And this kind of stuff even covers the baggage loss or delay in flights, like the small stuff, not necessarily I need to cancel my tickets or I need to cancel my hotel.
It does cover those baggage loss, baggage delay. See, everything also has a deductible associated with it. For example, on a baggage delay, if you have a baggage delay of at least 4 to 6 hours, then only the cover kicks in. If it is less than 4-6 hours, depending on the policy you have.
Sure.
Similarly on the trip delay. But yes, you have different plans which will take into account of these things. For example, one of the other thing on the higher side of plan covers is, for example, emergency cash. Now what happens is you lose your wallet. Now you have certain expenses to make. So what could the travel insurance do is arrange for an immediate certain cash amount to be passed on to you once you have the police report and everything done. It will ensure that you have some cash to take care of your immediate expenses.
Okay. So, the broad question in my head is that given all the advantages that you've just voiced and just the peace of mind that a small amount of money can give you, the question is, why do people even skip travel insurance? And unfortunately, I have my own example. Here's the thing. I'm staying in Dubai, but I'm traveling to India. Now, in my head, psychologically, I'm not taking a holiday. I'm not taking a trip. I'm going back home. I'm someone who does take travel insurance. Literally, when I buy the ticket, I buy travel insurance next to it. But that's if I'm going Europe, US, Paris kind of thing. Coming back to India, It's not a holiday, so I don't have to buy travel insurance. Of course, that was the only time I needed travel insurance. Not only was the flight cancelled, the airline shut down. You remember this from a few years ago?
Yes, yes.
The airline shut down. So obviously there was chaos in terms of flight cancellations, flight delays, shifting to other airlines. The point is I lost money on the tickets. Now, if the airline shut down, many years later, I'm still to get my refund. I mean, I've forgotten about it. But travel insurance would have surely helped me then.
Yes. See, what we are trying to educate, and that's the idea of through the policy project, also what we are trying to achieve is educate the consumers that the cost is not significant. It's almost an insignificant cost, and make it as a part of one of more checklists. Like if you're traveling, you might be traveling home, but you carry your passport, right? That's where just carry travel insurance. And for people who travel frequently, the best way is to buy an annual trip policy. That's about it. So you don't have to buy a travel insurance.
You can get those.
Trip. Yes. So annual trip policies can cover up to 180 days of travel in a year, which is more than enough for majority of the population.
So in a 12-month period, I can be traveling for 6 of those months and I'm covered for all those trips, irrespective of how many trips they are.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Any parting words of advice, Neeraj, before we let you go? Because some of this is a revelation even to me. Like right now, my heart is hurting because of that refund I just remembered. So...
No, so our objective is that to tell our listeners, to tell our viewers, and to tell our people who are traveling, who travel, to take travel insurance, because the headache it resolves, or the headache it solves, is a lot more beneficial than the initial cost that you have for travel insurance. Make it a part of your itinerary, make it a part of your required checklist, documents, whatever you call it, that this expense has to be done. As simple as that.
And given that it's such a minimal percentage of the total travel cost or budget, I mean, it's almost a no-brainer.
Obviously, yes. Obviously.
Fair enough.
Jaggu, you've just almost like the right point, right? The cost is just insignificant, but the benefits outweigh the cost at any point of time. Absolutely. So if you have one trip cancellation, I believe it will take care of your lifetime travel insurance cost.
It will. Neeraj, once again, thanks so much for being on the policy project with us, for enlightening us once again, and we're hoping to have you on again soon. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, Jaggu. Thanks for having me here on the policy project.
Our pleasure. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Policy Project, where we've highlighted the importance of travel insurance. And we're hoping that our discussion with Neeraj, the CEO of Policybazaar.ae, has helped you understand how important travel insurance actually is. Getting it could save you from a bunch of headaches. Now, if you want more information about travel insurance, be sure to check out the website Policybazaar.ae. Now, from our conversation with Neeraj, there have been some key takeaways. Let's go over them one by one. For one, travel insurance covers a lot of ground, from trip cancellations to flight delays and even any medical emergencies while traveling. Even if you end up just losing your wallet, travel insurance can provide you with emergency cash that's going to be needed. Getting the right travel insurance should make your trip much smoother. Also, there's multiple types of travel insurance plans out there. You can mix and match different plans and create the perfect plan for you. You should go for a plan that at least covers trip cancellations and medical emergencies. Now look, I get this. Most people don't want to bear another expense while planning an already costly trip, so they avoid travel insurance. But travel insurance can help you travel without any worries, basically for just the cost of one meal on your trip. Now, if you're a frequent flyer and you don't want to go through these formalities every time of travel insurance, what you can do is get yourself an annual travel insurance plan. So in those 365 days, they will cover you for 180 days of travel. That's 6 out of 12 months. Those are our key takeaways from this episode of the Policy Project. I'm Jaggu, and we'll be back with a lot more on finance and insurance in our forthcoming episodes. So remember to follow us and get notified about upcoming episodes on your favorite podcast platform.